Hello again, and welcome back to the show. Del, question right off the top. What is the most 80s thing that you ever bought?
Probably. Oh man. You know what? The robot for Nintendo.
Oh, very nice.
Rob.
I was going slap
One of the first
bracelet.
things I ever bought for myself. Slap bracelet. That'd be up there too. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, Rob, the robot operating buddy.
That is fantastic. We're talking 80s today because we are talking Black Monday.
Yes.
Show on the Showtime network, starring maybe one of my favorite human beings in the whole wide world, Don Cheadle, as well as Regina Hall. Our other favorite person in the whole wide world, Paul Shearer, makes a fantastic 80s creepy guy.
Yeah, fellow podcaster. I almost consider him an equal of us. Yeah, Paul Shearer from How Does This Get Made is fantastic. And one of my personal favorite comedians or comedic actors is Ken Marino, who I am delighted by everything he ever does. I'll dip my balls in it from the was it the state? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he does is great, and he gets to play two characters that we'll talk about in this show. And I love
two Ken Marinos
interacting with each other.
I'm very excited to talk about a different world later, but we'll talk about that in a bit. This show stars Andrew Reynolds. Not sure how to say his name.
He was the only person I didn't recognize in this entire series.
It is very much.
He was very good.
Yeah, it was very much a David Caspi kind of cast of characters that he brings to his shows and then brings the new guy along with him. He is Blair, and boy, is his life in the toilet.
Yeah, I guess we should. Do we want to start with kind of explaining what the show is for the people at home?
Yes, please.
Cars?
Yes.
Okay. So the premise, Black Monday is described as taking the audience back to October 19th, 1987, a.k.a. Black Monday, the worst stock market crash in Wall Street history. To this day, no one knows who caused it until now. It's the story of how a group of outsiders took on the blue-blooded old boys club of Wall Street and ended up crashing the world's largest financial system. A Lamborghini limousine, which is one of my favorite lines when he talks about how much he paid for it. Oh, so you get none of the space of the limo and none of the speed of the Lamborghini. Good investment.
Good.
John Henley's birthday party and the glass ceiling. Now, let's see. The pilot was entitled 365. And if the first season, all of the episode titles count down in number, except for one that goes up, because it's the days away from Black Monday. So 365, 1 year away from the date of Black Monday happening. Wild-Eyed Blair is thrust in the insane world of 80s Wall Street. And Mo, played by Don Cheadle, enacts his master plan to take over the Georgina Jeans Company.
The Georgina Jeans Company. 80s was the height of jeans and stonewashed, acid wash jeans. Before we can actually get into the episode, though, I am curious myself, just to ask you off the top, what do you know about that stock market crash of the 80s?
You know what's so weird is I wanted to see how closely, was this just like completely made up, not made up at all? Because, I want to know just how much liberty and license did they take with this? And I could not find, I went to the, obviously the Wikipedia page.
Sure.
But it doesn't really, it kind of just, I'll go through it. It literally just kind of lists different crashes that have happened over the time. And you go to the 1987 stock market crash. It's just more about what was actually happening, less the people, of course.
For sure.
Because the people were more concerned about the stocks and what's actually happening than the people that caused it. So I think they took a great bit of liberty with the show. One of the reasons I think that is, of course, Lehman Brothers. Everybody's famous knows them as the banking investment firm, but from Big Short as well. Ooh, they're making an appearance there too. But the Lehman Brothers were based on the Lehman Brothers that started the company.
Right.
So I don't know that in the 80s there were actually two twin brothers named Lehman. I don't know if that seems like they probably invented that. And I couldn't find anything on it, whether those people were real or not.
That's a good question. I don't know. I do know the jeans, unfortunately, were made up. Those were not.
I know for sure.
Those are not real jeans. I do know that if you ever really want to know a true story about what happened during that time, Bret Easton Ellis, he wrote American Psycho, among other things.
Amazing writer, yeah.
Was in the 80s. He had written that big book that everybody liked at the time. And so he was hanging out with those people. And he said the looks on the people's faces when that began to happen, it was just something that he'll never forget. And he describes in one of his podcasts. So I'd go seek that out if you want to know the real story of these people who were doing all the cocaine lines in the whole wide world, and then they find out that they can't afford their Lamborghini limo anymore. You know.
Yeah, it's a little similar, and I liked it because one of my favorite movies of all time, directed by Adam McKay, is The Big Short, about the housing bubble crisis in 2008. And I've watched that movie 12 times, easy. If I start it, I had to finish it. It's wonderful, one of the best openings in Hollywood history. But it's that same thing of when you see it starting to happen, and you see the fallout and the effect from it. Of course, there's some people that benefit from it that were short, The Big Short, everybody that was short selling. So when Brad Pitt tells the two guys, okay, yeah, you're millionaires now, but how about you don't fucking dance? A bunch of people are going to get thrown out of their homes. They're going to lose their careers. Now, this is obviously a comedy, as you can tell just from the cast alone. Black Monday, I believe every single person is a comedian or has done comedic acting, or is known for doing comedy. The only person I couldn't find was the main guy, Andrew Reynolds, is the only, and his husband, boyfriend, senator in the show were the only two that I had never seen before. Every single other person, even people that dropped in, like Tim Heidecker from Tim and Eric, background characters, every time there was a cameo, every time it was a small character for one episode, it was a comedian you recognized from somewhere else. And man, it plays because this show is hands down one of the funniest things I've seen in the last 10 years.
So let's drill down into the pilot episode itself. We follow Blair as he joins the crew.
Well, I think we should start with saying just kind of how it actually starts is the Lamborghini is driving around New York, pulls up in front of a building. A gentleman gets out, the chauffeur sees it, gentleman gets out of the back, goes into the building. The chauffeur notices a scuff on the car, so he's slowly buffing it out of this giant, long Lamborghini that's literally the length of a limo. And as he's buffing it out, a body slams into the Lamborghini and just utterly and completely destroys it. And then Black Monday starts. So then we jump back the year showing it. But that beginning was enough to make me go, okay, well, it was hilarious, and also, whoa, what is going on? I mean, it grabbed you immediately.
The warped sense of humor, falls on your head from the very first scene. Absolutely. And we just keep going down the rabbit hole after that. I really enjoyed the dark humor in this because I think that it's very accurate and representative of the people in the industry of the 80s. Paul Scheer,
very black-hearted,
has some of the meanest, cruelest, most hilarious jokes about other people, and it's just, it's so wonderful.
Everyone is so scuzzy. Even the guy that you're supposed to be, Andrew Reynolds, as Blair, you want to believe he's the sweetie, he's the baby. He has this algorithm that's going to make any investment company a lot of money, and so he's got all these job prospects lined up, and he's going around. And when he runs literally into Maurice Monroe, or Mo as he's called, and knocks cocaine out of his pocket, upsetting Mo and having Mo threaten his career and saying, if anybody hires this guy, I'm going to personally come after you and be on the opposite side of every investment you make from this point on. So it basically destroys Blair's career. And that's kind of the beginning of the episode, or as the episode rolls in. And no, he's not either. He is, especially if by the end of the second season, by the finale, there is no safe soul in this show at all.
Oh no, they're all terrible. And I love that we start with the long con. Like that is the pilot episode. As things begin to unfold, you see the incident with the cocaine on the floor. There was the design to that, or even having Blair be there in the first place. There was the design for that. So I love that long con adds to the scuzziness level of everybody at least threefold. And I think that if we really want to take a look at what those people were doing in the first place at the time, you couldn't make any of these characters good. Like, how do you make a character in that world good at that time?
Well, first of all, it was the 80s, so I don't know if there was anybody good.
Nope.
I don't know, my parents.
Again, much less on Wall Street in the 80s.
Yeah. And here's people that are just literally, it's all about the money, all about the power, all about the drugs. Yeah, in the 80s, obviously, I think most for the younger kids listening, here's something that you might not know about the 80s. It was known for cocaine. Cocaine. The drug that got everything done in 6 hours and had you off by 3 p.m.
Yes.
Yeah, the shows, everything suffered in the 80s, but a lot of it got done, you know. Um,
So much creative work, whether it was good or bad, who's to say, but it got done. That's for sure.
some of the craziest movies I've ever watched or read screenplays for, you can just tell was like a raving coke fueled,
Hmm.
bender written over a weekend.
Is it time that the 80s are coming back? Like, it goes around every 20 years or so, but nothing happened in the 2000s that we need to relive. So can we go back to the 80s? Let's go 40 years back now. What do you say?
Okay, right. No kidding. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the 80s were just so decadent. It really was. In the same way the 70s were, 60s were love, and the 70s were, free love and a little bit of hippie. The 80s were definitely corporate Wall Street greed, where all the hippies finally, gave up their values and just became total assholes. It really was. There was a time where that was maybe the loss of the American, the American innocence was towards the 80s. Reagan comes in, everything gets deregulated. Everything's about making a dollar. The Republicans take on, evangelicals as part of their platform. So it was a wild, wild time, the 80s. And I remember almost more of the 80s than I do of the 90s, and I was under 10 years old. But just because it just seemed like every week something crazy was happening in the world. It's like 2020. It was the 80s had so much every week. It was crazy.
They're putting razor blades in Halloween candy. Crazy times.
That's yeah, that never. Well, actually, wait, it was a father did it to
Like
his
it was.
kid, or a father to his stepfather, something like that. But yeah, it was. Well, this was the Satanic Panic
Yes.
time,
Yes.
where
Yes, yes.
everybody was, and kids, if you're listening at home, Satanists, pretty good people. A couple of them are friends of mine, wonderful people. Give them a shot. Let's see. But yeah, it's definitely when America lost its heart. That I would say that's the 80s, when it became a cold black lump of coal in the middle and all about the money.
Sadly, I'm going to agree with you there. If we're talking about the pilot episode, what we like to do is tell everybody the best parts so that they really know what they're getting into, or the worst parts. We've definitely had some worst parts.
I wish I would rewatched it, because I've seen it 3 times now, the whole series, but that was over a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched other TV since. Well, one of my favorite parts was where I think it's in the pilot, where Mo shows his nameplate for his desk, and it says Mr. Maurice Monroe Mo. And she's like, you gotta, you put your name on there twice. He's like, no, I had to get a second nameplate. And he sets a second nameplate down, so his name reads across 2 nameplates on his desk.
That's a baller move.
Yeah, everything is decadence. There's so much of everything: prostitutes, drugs, food, cigarettes, partying. It's alcohol. Everything is done to excess in the show.
All the comedy parts of the first episode, I think, worked. I enjoyed them all. But for me, the scene that I really enjoyed the most, which is also the most dastardly scene, is where Mo is talking to Blair outside the building after Blair lost all the money and he was about to take his car.
Yes.
That conversation that they have is such a heartfelt conversation, yet so devious on Mo's part, specifically so that he can do that, so he can be part of the jeans company and get Blair in on that. So it just shows what kind of character Mo is. And man, as the series goes along, it just keeps going down.
Yeah, and I have, because there's a twist at the end, but then again, we are talking about the pilot, so I guess I could say spoilers. Yeah. But the part of the plot is this guy Blair, who has an algorithm that he thinks can make any investment company money, runs into Mo, like I said, and Mo threatens to crush his career, and he goes home to his fiance, who it turns out is the daughter of the Georgina Jeans Company.
Dun, dun,
so her family is incredibly rich in this show, and he doesn't want their money. He wants to earn it on his own, working on Wall Street. Unbeknownst to him, the entire thing was set up by Mo to get him to eventually come and work for Mo, so that he could take over the Georgina Jeans Company. And the end reveal is that what happened on the stockroom floor with the coke flying everywhere was a setup by Mo, so that, yes, everything in the pilot becomes, all the things that you thought were sweet or sad, or that was maybe them bonding, like when Mo has the talk with him about it, you realize, wow, what a piece of shit. Like,
Just a
not
terrible
only
human being.
it wasn't even just like happenstance. This guy intentionally ruined this guy's career to give him no other options than to come work for him. And then when he challenges him, I think he gives him $10,000, said double it for me.
Yeah.
Or it's $100, by the end of the day. And he's almost there. And then right at the end of the day, the market dips a little bit and he loses everything but like 26 cents. And so he has to give Mo his car, and he drives like this really shitty, like, Honda Civic. I drove a Honda Civic, but it's like a Honda Accord. It's something that Mo would never, ever drive around. And you think Mo's going to, kind of be like, you know what, keep it, I'll give you a job, come work for me and this and that. But no, Mo still takes his car.
It's the principle of the matter.
Losing the bet. Yeah. God, I loved how skeezy everyone is. I love a show that when I'm done, I go, boy, I feel better about myself. Like, I feel so much better about how I treat other people after watching that show.
Oh, for
and
sure.
I'll be honest, it's one of those shows like we talk about. It was clearly written as a whole series, probably, I think, with both seasons in mind, honestly, because everything that's set up pays off, and so the pilot didn't feel like it was an actual, pilot, and off the ground pilot, to pitch an entire series. This was very clearly the first episode of a story. And so everything was laid out right at the beginning with the, what is it, Chef's Kiss? Just one of the best first episodes I've seen. Everything was wonderful about it.
I want to bow tie this idea of Georgina jeans that you were speaking on and bring it back so that you can give a little love to Kim Marino, because the reason that the Georgina jeans is so important
I can't wait to talk about it.
is because it's the white whale of trading. Nobody's ever been able to profit off of this because the family always keeps 51%. But good old Kim Marino, he's the one that's got it. So just give it to him. Give us some Kim Marino.
Kim Marino plays both Lyman brothers,
Larry and
to
Lenny,
perfection. Yeah, Larry and Lenny. They are implied incestuous.
Yes.
There.
It's only a rumor.
There are, just that they're very protective of that. They work at two desks facing each other. He gives them each such separate character traits, but yet they're somehow still so identical. It's like looking in a mirror, but it's one of those circus cartoon carnival mirrors where it's definitely you, but it's a little warpy.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, they diverged so much by the end of the show that alone was just greatness. But because do you finish the series?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. People just watch the whole series. I'll tell you now. We don't have to wait till we get to the end. But they're so scuzzy. But the way he plays against himself, both being evil and scuzzy, but they both really like each other for that. But one of my
what does Mo call them? What is the
this.
First thing he says when he walks into the room with them? What does he call
I think
them?
he says, "You brother fuckers."
Yeah, and then that's when they say that's unsubstantiated. That's just a rumor.
That's unsubstantiated. And they both talk over each other, which again, one of my favorite bits is when you can have an actor play against themselves talking over themselves.
Yes.
Wonderful. Because that does keep coming up. In fact, when one of the later episodes, Larry, I think it's Larry, is talking about how he and his brother used to go out to this, vacation home. And he's like, that's where we lost our virginity. That's where our mom's Virginia Slim cigarettes.
That's right.
Very clearly. And then when they kiss, they kiss on the lips, and it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And everything is just, oh, and then of course, they argue. It's like, it's normal to take baths when you're younger with each other. And who's to say when the cutoff is? Implying that they still probably take baths together. For his performance alone, but every time he's on screen, he steals it. I'm not going to reveal anymore, but that they do definitely come into play in the overall story arc a lot more. But man, the Lyman brothers or the Lehman brothers, that relationship they have, and of course they're working with Mo to kind of backdoor it through some shell corporations and end up purchasing 51% and basically throw the family out of the company. I don't know what else to say other than pure comedic. You know what it reminded me of? A comedic version of the Tom Hardy movie where he plays the two brothers so wonderfully. Mm-hmm. The two English mobsters. Oh my gosh, I can't think of it right now. But it's Tom Hardy did such an amazing job in that. I can watch the movie just for his acting. Ken Marino clearly just watched that and said, I'm just going to do a comedic version of those two criminals, but as Lehman brothers, and it's wonderful.
Since we're only allowed one chef's kiss per episode, I'm going to use my chef's kiss episode about Kim Marino. So, mwah, it was magical.
Yeah, he was just great. Legend, that's the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yes, perfect. Okay, so go watch that one too if you want a series version of this. But yeah. So I'm just gonna gush over him. Let's get back to Paul Scheer if we're gonna gush over anybody for a minute. Paul, if you're listening, I know you are. You're a big fan. Take a few moments from your show, call in. We'd love to have you as a guest sometime. But wow. So it turns out Paul. I don't know if this is in the first episode or not, but his character is gay. They get that off right out of the bat. And a big long story arc of his is, with it, even if he has a family and kids, is what is he going to do? Now, the 80s are also when AIDS is raging. So there are a lot of jokes about how things were acceptable, kind of like in Mad Men where they show everybody littering and smoking inside. There's a lot of jokes here where like people are not sensitive about AIDS yet. There's the sexual harassment video they watch in one episode. One of my favorite lines in the whole series is somebody says, do I have to act that way towards this lady? She's an old person. Do I have to, not sexually harass her? And the guy goes, look, sexual harassment applies to everybody of a youthful age and attractiveness. And that's one of my favorite lines too. And yeah, the non-sensitivity is a great thing because we look back 40 years now. And there are just things that you're like, wow, the fuck did they get away with doing that or thinking that? The philosophies of the time are interesting to watch because back then, it really was something new. Hey, we're having this huge marketplace. Wall Street's growing like it never has before. It's almost a new type of industrial revolution that's changing the globe. And everybody saw it as a good thing. Everybody saw that profits and money is the only thing driving, the country. Deregulation, everything like that. So it's weird to look back 40 years and see the damage of what that all, we knew it was, we can look back and say, well, of course it was going to crash at some point. I've lived through 3 recessions now in my life. I'm getting a little tired of it. But they didn't even think they thought it was going to keep going forever. And it's amazing to see the confidence they had back then in the amount of drugs and money they could make.
So let's tell the people some recommendations based off of Black Monday. These don't have to be straight recommendations. It could be something completely off the wall that matches the tone or the energy of the show. Del, do you have something to recommend that connects with Black Monday?
Well, let's go for not the TV shows, the movies. So Legend and, but most importantly, The Big Short. I think The Big Short is also, it's a film, again, by Adam McKay, that uses comedic actors in serious roles playing them comedically. But it's also a comedy. It's very funny, but it's really insightful as to how the 08 crash happened. So I got to liken that to it immediately. This whole time, it really felt like an even sillier, crazy version of Big Short. Gosh, another one like this, I don't know. The thing is, it was so funny. I don't know what else to really compare it to other than, historical dramas kind of.
I've got a few ideas for you.
I'm a little stuck, honestly.
One of the ones I would recommend if you want to stay on the Don Cheadle bandwagon is House of Lies. It's a show that he did for Showtime with Kristen Bell, and he's also a scumbag in that. So if you want to keep the Don Cheadle scumbag energy going, you can do that. Or
this also did remind me of Wet Hot American Summer.
I don't watch that. Garbage.
Yeah, I know you're not a big Wayne fan, but that would be another show. I think if you like Black Monday, you'd probably like Wet Hot American Summer, the series, not the movies, because they're definitely different in tone.
If you want to come back to the 80s with me, I've been enjoying Miami Vice. It is so much fun. There's so much 80s involved. The pilot episode is probably perfect. I could watch that over and over and over again.
Where is that at? Where can people watch that?
Stars. It's on Stars right now. Yep.
I'm going to go see if I'm grabbing that.
Enjoy the heck out of Miami Vice because it is a little bit of a treasure hidden in the pastimes of yesteryear. I think people get this weird idea about it, but it really ends up just being kind of a PI show, really, at the end. I mean, he's a detective, so Miami Vice, that's what else I'll give you.
Separately and not at all on topic, like as I want to do, I got into moonlighting again recently. Boy, I forget how good that pilot was. We're going to have to definitely do that one. That's almost a full movie, a Bruce Willis movie, and Sybil Shepherd. But boy, that's the best I would say even better than Cheers, Will They, Won't They,
Was
that I've ever
he
watched.
was he still shooting that when he did Die Hard, or had he finished?
Boy, I'm gonna have to look that up now.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
let me
remember if it was
check.
during the
Honestly,
time or like right after, but like I know it went moonlighting to that, but I didn't know if there was an overlap.
it seems like it was Moonlighting was what got him the job on Die Hard, if I remember right. But then again, it has been a while, and I'm no Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy, if you're out there, a good friend of mine who is a Bruce Willis nut. Let me know how wrong I am on this, because I know he knows. Let's see. Die Hard was what year was that? 1988, and Moonlighting.
Probably went from 87 to 89. That's what I'm going with. I love this.
Okay,
The live
okay.
updates. Yes.
Perfect.
Nailed it.
Moonlighting 2000 and yeah, got it. So it was right in the, so the first series probably got him the job on the movie. Well, it looks like they went 2-3 seasons. That's what made him, I mean, that's what got Bruce Willis's name, is Moonlighting. Got him Die Hard, then everybody saw him as an action instead of a comedy guy. I do remember reading about in Die Hard that they were reluctant to initially pick him because they thought he was going to play it comedically. They were worried that he was going to be too funny. But when they finally obviously did test footage, they were like, oh, no, he's a badass. So that's what moved him into action.
Sometimes this last topic couldn't be easier. This is one of those times. Would you recommend Black Monday, the pilot, to the people? Tell them what you think, Del.
I think this is one of the best. I don't know if it's the best pilot, but I would say it's one of the most enjoyable pilots. I never went 30 seconds without having an actual guffaw out loud laugh. It's not anything special. It's other than it's one of the absolute hands down funniest things I've ever seen. No joke, in a decade. And every episode is that funny, if not funnier as it goes, because there's definitely 2 or 3 in season 2 where I'm like, wow, I wish I had another chef's kiss right now that I was allowed to do, because
Only
there
one.
are some moments that are just brilliant comedic bits. And yes, hands down, people watch. Oh, I'll tell you my favorite part. You asked me earlier and I couldn't quite remember.
Yes.
The very beginning, when they run the 80s Showtime logo before every episode. So this is a treat. They run with the bad audio. It kind of glitches in and out a little bit. So instead of using the new Showtime logo before the show, they went back and clearly, like, it looks like they dubbed it off of VCR and shoved that in front of your face before the cold open of every episode. And it does this great thing where it moves you back to the 80s. Because I really do go, oh, that's so crappy sounding, and the stereo's kind of glitching left and right, and like it really sets you for feeling like I'm a little kid again, seeing that logo, and then the show starts, and I'm in the 80s, So it's a great little transition piece too that takes you out of the moment. I thought that was brilliant.
I agree. I would recommend this as well. We are 2 for 2 on the 1980s on this show, along with that 80s show. We recommended that as well.
Yes.
So I guess we're fans of the 80s and going back and enjoying all those times. There's so much humor in this that's better than a sitcom on any of the networks. Obviously, they're on Showtime, so they could do things differently. But I feel like the level of comedy, curse words or no curse words, is just a different level.
This is not a situation comedy. This is not a comedy that stems from the fact that Black Monday has occurred or even will occur. This is one of those, my favorite, a character-driven show. It's important that we know who Mo is. It's important that we know who, I almost said Barry Allen, Blair. There we go. It's the characters and their very particular idiosyncrasies that make them who they are. Like Paul Scheer's character, the Lehman brothers, the Georginas. I mean, well, first of all, everybody's famous in this too. The Spencer, the guy that played in Making History. Everybody, who the character are by glancing at them. They have a very particular look and they have a very particular way of acting, and how they're going to interact with each other. And so, yes, the humor stems from those people's personalities in conflict or in unison with each other. And that's just really nice to see in a cast this large, because this is an ensemble, with everyone being not the star, but at least second tier.
We have reached the end of another episode of Pilot Pass. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening to us talk about Black Monday. We are online on all the social medias. If you want to interact with us, talk to us, follow us, any of those kind of things, at Pilot Pass Pod. You'll be able to find us there. We can also be found as far as our podcasts go. Where are we at now, Dale?
Podcasts everywhere, I believe now. And in fact, now we're on YouTube because, as I put it, our studio thinks that our audio podcast needs to be on a video streaming service. But if for some reason YouTube's all you can get, they're slowly adding the episodes. I think there's 2 of them up right now. So Tiger King and the Pilot. But there will be added within the next week or 2. All of them should be caught up to where we are now. So if that's the only way you can listen, hop over there. That still helps our analytics and makes us look good. Make sure you hit the like button. And on Facebook, you can find us at just facebook.com/Pilot Pass, or just search Pilot Pass. People, you do the work.
You do the work
for you.
Important to know, though, that is no video. That's still Patreon only is our video for our podcast.
That's correct. It's just a static picture at YouTube. Yeah, it's just a static picture with our logo on it. But you want to watch me and Matt looking at each other like earlier, here's a little behind the scenes magic, people. I was sipping on a drink. In between when Matt was talking, I forgot to hit my mute button, but then the straw slipped out and I had to hold it in my mouth for a minute before I tried to push it back in without using my hands. But you didn't know that at home. You didn't know that.
Well, now the mystery is ruined.
Only Matt could see, and only people that support our Patreon page get to see how dumb I look behind the scenes.
There you go. I have one final question for you for the episode, and it is this. Why, Del, why is it that I always think Kadeem Harrison from A Different World, who was in this show, is Malcolm Jamal Warner?
I don't know, but that's the guy that's also in Making History, right? He's the Muslim.
Kadeem Harrison, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, Kadeem Harrison.
Yeah, he's from A Different World. That's all that matters.
Okay.
That's all I care about. He was the coolest
See, I only
dude
watched
in the
like
world.
3 episodes of Different Worlds. I've only seen like 3 episodes of that.
I'm done with you.
But he's the guy. But he plays the guy that plays the Muslim in the show, right? He's Horatio Sands' best friend.
I don't know. A Different World.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
227 Moesha.
I always forget the guy from Breaking Bad was the guy from Do the Right Thing. So that still always throws me.
Until next time.